My name is Jeff Brodeur. I'm a contractor with IB3 Global Solutions, and we support a Department of State initiative in Iraq that's recently expanded to Libya. My job is to lead a CBRN team into former ISIS-occupied territories. We identify uncharacterized liquid hazardous material or toxic chemicals and define the size and the scope. That means that we have to do a toxic chemical survey. And that requires us to have the capability on site of presumptive ID. Once we do our survey and we've defined the size and the scope, then our project has us in a pause status until we collaborate, in this case with the government of Iraq, on who is going to remediate or if we're going to keep a family or a business from repopulating. The Rigaku ResQ, I've used it personally for 2 rotations this calendar year, 2018. We're going back to Iraq in November for another 4-week rotation. It is probably one of the easiest and responsive instruments that I've worked with in a number of years. So my background is 30 years in the Army, retired in 2014. I was the assistant commandant to the U.S. Army's Chemical, Biological, Radiological, and Nuclear School. So I've done CBRN as a soldier for 30 years. Now I'm doing it for 4 years as a civilian contractor. And it is by far one of the easiest instruments to use. It probably took us 20 minutes, I say us, there's 3 people on our team, to play with it. Really, it wasn't really learning. The learning curve wasn't very steep. We played with it for about 20 minutes. We practiced. We used it in our rehearsals, and it's everything that we need. When we first did the mission profile, we identified the need for a presumptive ID, and we took a look at probably 4 different instruments like the Rigaku ResQ. The Rigaku ResQ was selected for our project. I've not had any maintenance issues, software issues with the Rigaku ResQ ever. We will come up on a target. We'll identify the hazard. And in our case, it's a liquid, it's a powder, or it's a solid. The liquids, we used to fill the small vial that it comes with, and we decided that that was really an unnecessary step for us. So we'll take a swipe with a paper towel of the liquid. We'll double bag it. The powders, we'll take a sample of that and double bag it. And then we'll bring all of those samples back to our vehicle where the Rigaku ResQ is, and we'll do our presumptive ID there. It takes probably much less than 2 minutes for us to get a result. It's more like on the order of about 30 or 45 seconds. In terms of time, having a presumptive ID capability at the target site saves us an incredible amount of time. In my experience, field labs operated by Department of Defense can quickly, because there's such a tremendous resource for a number of organizations, they can quickly get backlogged. And you can find yourself, you've got to do sample management in terms of the chain of custody, and you've got to follow up on the lab results, and the lab results don't always get emailed, to the right point of contact. Having presumptive ID on our person at the target site eliminates all of the hassle. Some of the targets that we bring it into, Mosul University has about 420 chemistry labs. They have about 4 large chemical storage facilities, rooms, buildings. So the typical chemistry that you would find in a university lab, that's That's what we're sampling. 8 EOD survey teams operating at Mosul International Airport, or what's left of it. Largely damaged buildings, a tremendous number of IEDs, and that in and of itself, having 8 teams on one target is extremely expensive. They came upon an unexploded ordnance. It was a rocket that had impaled itself in the ground. In the process of trying to excavate the soil around it, they identified a dark-colored liquid, what every EOD operator doesn't want. So they stopped. We thought we had a chemical agent. We thought it was an improvised munition. And so the survey stopped that day. It was probably 2 p.m. We made arrangements for me to go out the next morning. And in less than 5 minutes, we had done a presumptive ID. It was ammonium nitrate. The relief on the EOD operators' faces was absolutely breathtaking, because they were certain that they'd been exposed to mustard. ISIS has a history of using mustard, and this was an improvised munition. But more importantly, we were able to put back into employment 8 survey teams. It probably saved the company a few $100,000, because we only had to suspend EOD survey for, on the order of about 4 or 5 hours. And with me and the Rigaku ResQ out at the next morning at about 8:30, it was quick and it was easy. The EOD teams use forensics to profile the bomb makers, if you will. And so they can, if they know that a certain bomb maker has constructed an IED, they know what the telltale signs are, they recognize it, and so they understand how to safely disable, disarm. And it goes by pretty quick. When something is different, they pick up on that quickly. And the first rotation that we used, the rescue, one of the EOD operators had just returned from a site. They took a sample. They were getting ready to submit it to the field lab, and he asked me what I had. I told him what I had, and so we did a presumptive ID on the solid. It ended up being TNT, which is not a component that they normally find. And so that allowed them to, I'm trying to remember now. They were able to change the profile on how they approach the IEDs in that mission set. This was a mission set that was an entire residential neighborhood that ISIS had occupied. It was probably on the order of 50 to 100 homes. And right before ISIS was displaced, they set charges to all of the homes to blow. Not all the charges did blow. And so this was a project to go through and to clear all of the homes so that they could be completely demolished and then rebuilt. So the operational environment. When we arrive at a target, we're in probably a 4-vehicle convoy. Security secures the site for us, and then the CBRN and the EOD team pair up. It's a desert environment, and there's always a wind, there's always a cross breeze. We suit up in our personal protective equipment, which means that I've got an overgarment on, I've got gloves, I've got boots. Depending on what the respiratory hazard is or is not, will depend on whether I wear a filtered mask or a respirator or a half mask. We have, by design, decided not to take the Rigaku into the target area, only because I don't want to decon. It's just easier to keep it clean. So we do all of our sampling on the target site. So we'll take the liquids, we'll take a swipe, the solids and the powders and the solids, we'll take a sample, we'll double bag the sample, and then we'll bring the samples back to our vehicle and we'll do the presumptive ID in the back of the vehicle. So the samples are clean, the Rigaku stays clean, and we at that time have doffed our personal protective equipment and it's in a trash bag and we're clean at that time as well. So that allows us really to knock out, half a dozen samples on one target relatively quickly. And I don't have to worry about the need to have more than one instrument on the target. In other words, I can have 4 or 5 operators all taking samples in the target area and then bring the samples back to the Rigaku, as opposed to bringing the Rigaku to about 6 or 7 places on the target. It's just the technique that we've adopted, and it works well for us. We do a report for every target. We do daily reports, and we have weekly roll-up reports. And these reports get sent back to the interagency in Washington, D.C. And we've gotten a number of phone calls on what we find and where we find it. And nobody has challenged the instrument that we use to do the presumptive ID. Nobody's challenged the information that we detail on the reports. It makes all of the quality control cuts that we need it to. So when we use the Rigaku in the laboratory scenario, we'll generally have liquid out in the open on the floor or the counter. We'll generally have containers with no label and no lid. And we'll either present the Rigaku to the sample, or we'll take samples of all of those and then double bag them and present them to the Rigaku later on. The pharmacy plant that we found north of Mosul is a completely different scenario. This is a place that brought in bulk inventory so that they could containerize the powdered Tylenol, as an example, into a capsule and blister pack and issue for individual distribution or over-the-counter sort of form. Think of 1,000 barrels, and these barrels are anywhere between 58 gallons and about 65 gallons each, all in different states of disrepair. They've been out in the elements. A lot of them are rusty. Bags ranging from 25 pounds to about 250 pounds. The bags are 2-layered, as I would describe it. The first layer is just a transparent plastic bag that's holding the powder or whatever the pharmacy is. And then there's a second bag that is a white weave, non-transparent, that's got the labeling for the contents. And the labeling is in a different language and it's been weathered and it's unreadable. So in the case of the pharmacy plant, we will take a swipe of the liquid in each one of the 1,000 drums, and then we'll violate the integrity of the bag and we'll physically take a sample out, double bag it, and present it to the Rigaku. We expect that survey to take about 70 to 90 days. We're going to run 2 sampling lanes with a Rigaku on each lane. And our planning factor is about 10 items an hour for an 8-hour day. That we'll be able to better then come back to you and tell you how the battery is holding up. So we always use the adapter that comes with a ResQ. The display takes all the guesswork on adjusting the distance between the laser and the sample. The adapter allows us to expose the sample to the laser for the right amount of time at the right distance, and for us, it eliminates a lot of human error. There are a number of customers that benefit from the cost savings. The first is the customer that's paying for it, State Department. They get more work in less time. The government of Iraq saves a lot of money because the quicker that we can, as an example, survey the airport, the quicker they can rebuild it. If we're surveying a home or a residential neighborhood, then the quicker the family can repopulate or the business can repopulate. If it's a business, then they're saving money because they get to go into business much earlier and much quicker and begin, the economic cycle once again. So there's a range of customers that benefit from us being able to do. Just having the presumptive ID capability on the target means the world to what we're doing. It makes us so much more effective. I think to put it in a sort of a metric, understandable scale, the first rotation was just myself. I didn't have the full complement of the team. And in 2 months, we accomplished 87 contract tasks, so about 87 targets that I was able to do on my own, only because of the quick turnaround time.